Welcome to Soap, a story of the Tates and the Campbells, whose normal life is anything but normal, with co-hosts Tom Diamond, Vicky Ray, Jesse Fultz, and Keith Chowgo. Soap operas come and go, but there has never been a soap opera like Soap.
Welcome to the Literary License Podcast, and today we are covering Soap Season 1, Episodes 1 through 8. And today we have with us Tom Diamond. Say hello, Tom.
Hi, everybody. I crawled over from the crypt of Dark Shadows to join you guys for Soap. Very happy to be here.
And I would say Jesse Fultz, but he blew us off again. Where'd he go, Keith?
He's in Salem, Massachusetts, still doing he's on a book tour at the moment, so...
And, of course, that's Keith Chowgo. You know who he is. Say hello, Keith.
Hello, all you lovely people out there.
And before we get started, let's see what everybody's been up to since the last time we all chit-chatted on here. So, Tom, what have you been doing?
Well, last time we chit-chatted really was last week when we did the latest Dark Shadows thing. And so nothing much other than it's the week before the election. And it's COVID, and I think everybody's a little nervous, but we're living from day to day, and schoolwork is going well, and I'm just enjoying being alive, essentially, and I'm sorry, yeah, and continuing to look at. The Haunting of Bly Manor, I think it is, which is very, very interesting.
How far into it are you?
The 6th episode, which actually that was more of a time loop episode, where the African American caretaker goes back and forth between interviewing the cook for the job and so forth, and they've got some sort of thing going on, and that kind of threw Sharon, my fiance, off a little bit. She loved all the episodes up to that one, and she said, "This is so boring. I don't know why. This is so. What is this? Why do they have to put an episode like this into something like that? What is going on with them?" And I said, "Sharon,
you sound like that Monty Python guy saying spam, 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 spam."
Oh, thank you.
That's what it reminded me of. But no, I thought it was really good. I thought it was better than The Haunting of Hill House, though.
I like it. It reminds me of Dark Shadows in terms of it's really what is it? It's really based loosely on Turn of the Screw, and Dark Shadows borrowed from that.
That was really cool because we covered that. And that's like that just jumped right out at me, didn't it, Keith? To you? Mm-hmm. I didn't know they were going to go there with it, and it's just like I know this story.
Sure. So and of course it's got the Collinwood look. It's got the mansion. It's got the paneled walls. It's got the and that ghost was really cool. The boyfriend that she didn't want to marry the guy, and he got out of the car and was killed, and so that's who we. But I don't want to give too much away for those people who are really interested.
The ghost with no faces. That shit just isn't my. That
just watch it, everybody. Just watch it.
It's pretty good, peeps.
Yep.
What are you doing, Keith?
I started watching a Spanish series called The Barrier, which is extremely good. It's set in Spain after World War III, and they put a barrier around the country, and it goes into a dictatorship, which is quite interesting. It's very good, actually.
Oh.
And then another thing that's happening is there's also this virus that's killing off people as well, and they're fighting for a cure during this whole time period. So that's very good. I think it's from the makers of Money Heist. Or
what channel is it on?
It's on Netflix.
Okay. Okay.
And then I watched a German horror film called Don't Go Into the Woods, which is interesting. It's kind of a cross between Wrong Turns and Friday the 13th. It was interesting. Not one of my favorites. And then I watched this horrendous thing on Netflix called Rebecca, which is based on the Daphne du Maurier novel, which is, of course, was turned into a better film by Alfred Hitchcock. But yeah, it kind of went on. It was kind of like, I mean, it looked beautiful, but that's about it. But besides that, doing stuff, reading some really good books at the moment, and getting geared up for the second wave of COVID here in the UK. So that's about it.
So much of my reservations. That shit better be gone by next summer. I'm tired of this crap.
We hope so.
And myself, I've been watching a lot of Shudder. I've been trying to keep up with Joe Rondonzo's list that he keeps posting on Facebook, all his horror movies for Halloween. So I've been trying to pick one off there and stuff. I keep trying to watch Basket Case, but I can't find it anywhere. So
I got that on Blu-ray. I love
I figured you got everything on Blu-ray.
I got Basket Case 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, well, you got to be a little twisted to own all of them, because we all know what Basket Case was about. That was just probably one of the most fucked up horror flicks they made, but so well worth the watch. It's up there in the top 10 for sure.
Sounds like Eraserhead or one of those.
Oh God, that was torturous. I don't know if you watched it, but me and Scott sat here and watched it one night, and it's like we rented it. It's like, damn it, we're gonna see it through and finish watching fucking Eraserhead. It was. Yeah.
And then with the aborted fetus, and like, kind of goes off onto a tangent, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was bizarre. But other than that, we've been chilling. We finally finished up with the Texas State Championships for BMX, and Asher's number 7 in Texas. We didn't bring home the big trophy, but we like his ranking, so he got a state plate. And
brag about him. Isn't he doing, what is he, second grade doing fourth grade reading
level?
Yeah,
he got all high 90s, and he's second grade, and he's fourth grade reading level. His mom's doing a great job with him, so I love my kids. And it's still Breast Cancer Awareness Month, people, and ladies and men, y'all should get checked because they can fit you in there too. I didn't know they could, but they can. And they have this 3D thing now, and they're talking about, don't worry about it. It doesn't squeeze or make you wince like the other ones do. Don't believe it, but do go get your mammogram because it really is important. And they got this really cool 3D thing now, and they always tell you not to breathe and not to move, and I don't know how they expect you to when they tell you that.
I hate to get medical, but Keith, isn't there a condition called hypergynecomastia?
I don't know.
Where men grow, gynecomastia, where men grow breasts.
And I've asked them, I go, can you get men in there? She goes, oh, yeah. And I go, oh, man.
Do they actually have mammograms for men with that kind of condition?
It's very rare, but men can get breast cancer, but it's very rare.
Well, that's what Brian Piccolo died of, Brian's song, but you never even talk about it.
Wow.
But we did get a hit movie and a good theme song.
Yes, we did. Somewhere down the road.
Wasn't it James Caan or something that played him or something?
James Caan and Gail Sayers.
Gail Sayers.
Billy D. Williams.
Oh, Billy D. Williams. Okay, yes.
That's a sad movie. I don't give a shit who you are. Everybody cried the first time they saw it.
The tissue industry went up the roof. If you had stock in tissues that year, I'm sure you did extremely well. That between that and The Way We Were, that was another good one for the tissues. Anyway,
before we get started on to soap, we're going to hear from Story Geek, who will tell us what we can download, stream, or watch during the COVID crisis from the safety of our own home.
What movies and TV shows should you be watching the week of October 26th? I'm Jay Shear, co-writer and director of Death of a Bounty Hunter, the new supernatural steampunk western coming out as a full cast audiobook on November 9th, 2020. And before we get started, how excited are you for new episodes of The Mandalorian? I can't wait. In the meantime, let's look at all the other things available this week. Nothing new in wide release in theaters, so let's jump straight into streaming. Now on Netflix, not a whole lot of new content on Netflix. We did get the animated movie Batman: The Killing Joke that was added a few weeks back. I saw that in theaters, and I'll say this, it's not worth your time. This movie adaptation of the comic takes a decent story and makes it far, far worse. Save yourself the time and energy and watch something else. Paranorman was also added to Netflix, and that is a clever little movie that the entire family will enjoy. Metacritic gives it a 72, and I highly recommend it. I thought it was really funny, so go check out Paranorman. Over on Amazon Prime, we've got a new Borat movie, which is a sequel to the original. I've heard conflicting reviews of this film, but Metacritic has it at a 68. Borat isn't particularly my jam, so I'll be skipping it. But if you saw it, let me know if it's any good. Over on Disney Plus, the biggest news is that season 2 of The Mandalorian comes out on Friday, October 30th. Watch it before you get spoiled. There's going to be, the whole internet's going to go crazy every time a new Star Wars thing comes out. That's what happens. My friends who have seen some of the episodes already said that we're in for a real treat. Disney Plus also recently added Marvel's Iron Man and Captain America Heroes United and Once Upon a Snowman, which is a Frozen universe short film featuring Olaf. There's not really much new on Hulu, so this week is really all about horror movies in celebration of Halloween and, of course, The Mandalorian. As I said at the beginning of this segment, our new audiobook, Death of a Bounty Hunter, is coming out November 9th. We are extremely excited about it and can't wait for you to hear it. deathofabountyhunter.com will have more info on how to access the new audiobook starting on November 2nd. So November 2nd, you'll have all the info you need, and November 9th is when the new segments start coming out. I hope you'll take a listen and let me know what you think. This has been Jay Shear, and I hope you have fun watching movies and TV shows wherever you find them.
An American sitcom television series that originally ran on ABC from September 13th, 1977 until April 20th, 1981. The show was created as a nighttime parody of daytime soap operas presented as a weekly half-hour primetime comedy. Similar to a soap opera, the show's story was presented in a serial format and featured melodramatic plot lines including alien abduction, demonic possession, extramarital affairs, murder, kidnapping, unknown diseases, amnesia, cults, organized crime, warfare, a communist revolution, and a teacher-student relationship. In 2007, it was listed as one of Time Magazine's 100 best TV shows of all time. And in 2010, the Tates and the Campbells ranked at 17 in TV Guide's list of TV's top families. The show was created, written, and executive produced by Susan Harris, and also produced by Paul Junger, Witt, and Tony Thomas. Each returning season was preceded by a 90-minute retrospective of the previous season. 2 of these retrospectives were made available on VHS in 1994, but were not included on any of the DVD collections. The show aired 85 episodes over the course of 4 seasons. 8 of these, including the final 4, aired as 1-hour episodes during the original run on ABC. These hour-long episodes were later split into 2, yielding 93 half-hour episodes for syndication. And like most sitcoms of the era, soap was videotaped rather than filmed, but coincidentally helped further its emulation of the daytime soap opera format, as much as most such productions were also videotaped. All episodes are available in Region 1 DVD and 4 box sets. You can still get them. The show starred Katherine Helmond and Catherine Damon as sisters, matriarchs of their families. The cast also included 3 former soap opera actors, Robert Mandan, who's Chester Tate, had previously appeared on Search for Tomorrow as a leading man for Mary Stewart, and Donnelly Rhodes, Dutch Leitner, who had played the first husband of Catherine Chancellor on The Young and the Restless. Arthur Peterson Jr., the Major, played Reverend John Rutledge in the radio version of The Guiding Light. So they had some daytime heavy hitters when they brought that out. And you know what? Now that I think back on it after all those years, yeah, I remember that now. I would have never totally forgotten it if I had not had to read that again.
This month on Soap, Jessica tells Mary she's having an affair but won't mention with whom, while Chester's secretary, Claire, blackmails Chester over their illicit affair. Claire is hoping the blackmail will cause Chester to leave Jessica. Over at the Campbells, Jody tells Mary he is planning to have a sex change operation. Burt is overly excited to be reunited with his long-lost biological son. Danny, who is employed by the mob, asks the Godfather to leave. The Godfather agrees to Danny's request only on the condition that he kills the man who kills his father, which is Burt. Peter, the handsome, strapping tennis pro, is having an affair with Jessica and her daughter Corrine, whom neither one knows of the other, nor, to top it off, he is Burt's long-lost son. Mary is unable to convince Jessica that Chester has been playing playful. Mary also confronts Burt about their sexual problems. Jessica tries to confess to Chester about her affair with Peter, but Chester misinterprets this as an accusation. Burt analyzes his inability to get along with Danny and Jody and decides to try harder. Danny is told by the Godfather that Burt has killed Danny's father. Jessica tries to say goodbye to Peter to save her marriage, but ends up in bed with him and is caught by her daughter Corrine. Jody learns that his quarterback boyfriend Dennis has a beard, dating a woman to keep up his image. Jody tells Dennis that he is going to have a sex change operation. Chester is confronted by Claire and Pigeon, whom he has been conducting simultaneous affairs. Mary urges Jessica to break it off with Peter, who also suggests that Peter is also involved with Corrine. Billy tries to live a normal life and tries to go steady with a girl named Molly. Jessica reveals that Corrine is adopted. Danny gets nowhere on his attempts to kill Burt, although that doesn't stop Danny from still trying. Chester fakes being sick so he can sneak and have a love romp with Claire. Jody and Dennis run into Eunice and her twice the married Congressman McCallum. Mary and Burt visit a sex therapist. Corrine tells Father Tim that she's in love with him, hoping this will provide the excuse to not move in with Peter. Jessica catches Mrs. Ben having an affair with Peter. Mary leaves Billy, leaving him depressed. Jessica tells Chester that Corrine is moving in with Peter. Corrine tells Eunice about Jessica and Peter. Jessica tries to apologize to Corrine and tries to explain to Mary about Peter. Burt announces that Chuck and Bob are coming to stay. Having failed to tempt Father Tim away from his vow of chastity, Corrine tells him that she is moving in with Peter. Danny plans to kill Burt in a cabin in the woods. The mayor kidnaps Mr. Kirby to take his neighbor. Danny invites Burt to the cabin in the woods. Chester is delivered an ultimatum by Claire. Chuck arrives and we find out that Bob is a ventriloquist dummy and Chuck expects Bob to be treated like a real person. Claire tells Jessica that she is having an affair with Chester. Jessica thinks Claire is insane, but to Benson's dismay, Danny points a gun at Burt's head. Danny decides he can't kill Burt at all. Mary has trouble accommodating Chuck and Bob at breakfast. Danny comes to terms with Jody being gay. Burt and Danny make up a story about Danny being a spy so he can go into hiding from the mob. Benson stands up to Chuck and Bob. Danny shows up in disguise and the mob attempt to assassinate him at the Tate house. Confused? You won't be at this month's episode of Soap.
Welcome back to the Literary License Podcast. We are still covering episodes 1 through 8 for the sitcom Soap. So, Tom, what did you think about Soap, episodes 1 to 8?
So, I had never watched it when it was on originally. I'd heard about it, and really the only thing I remember hearing about was the guy with the ventriloquist with the dummy that everybody was talking about, and of course Billy Crystal, and that was really, I think, one of his original claim to fame, and one of the first times he was ever on. God, he was so young, but anyway, so watching this, so the first thing that really struck my mind was the plot was complex, and the good thing about it was the announcer talked about the plot, recapped every episode, because it would be very, very easy to get kind of lost in that. And to me, that was similar to Dark Shadows, my favorite show, and that the plots were very, very complex. The difference being, Dark Shadows, they did recaps very, very, very rarely. But here, it's every episode. And I thought that was good because because they did that in I think in the radio soap operas to a certain extent, and it kept people and kept.
You'd almost have to with the radio ones.
What's that?
You'd almost have to with the radio.
Yes. But so that was now my favorite for this block was the grandfather, the guy who thinks he's in World War II, and the first scene that you see
the general was it the general?
The general. In the first season, you see him crawl. In the first scene, you see him crawling across the floor like he's waiting for the bombs to hit him. And I'm saying to myself, every home should have one. I think that I actually in Rhode Island years ago I went out with somebody who told me about her great aunt Reba, who when she was nearly 100 would greeted somebody by saying, "Well, hello, President Hoover," And so this is the kind of guy that this kind of reminded me of that one. I thought that Jessica, the Ditz, boy, she was really good.
Beautiful, though, wasn't she?
Oh, gorgeous. Oh, she was hot.
Quite a lovely woman.
Oh, she was hot.
She had a young beau, too. She was everybody's hero back in the day.
Oh, God. I mean, but who I also thought was hot? The Chester's secretary, Claire.
Oh.
God. What the heck?
He was such a bitch, though.
He was a lech. Oh, he was a lech, and his kid, and the one who played his son, the little Italian kid,
that's Scott Baio's cousin, Jimmy Baio.
Well, no, I'm not thinking. I know what you're talking about. That's the one who wanted to murder. What's his name? Burt. And Burt, by the way,
Danny Dallas. That's what was his name?
That was
Ted Ross.
I'm thinking of the little boy, the little boy.
Oh, that would be Billy Tate, Jimmy Baio.
Oh, that is Jimmy Baio, the little kid.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. Okay. Because he was pretty good. He was pretty funny.
The only sane one in the family, basically, though.
I guess, and of course, who could forget Benson? And I mean, this is the guy.
I love Benson.
Why the hell didn't they fire this guy? I mean,
because nothing would run without him.
Well, he's perfect. He's like Scotty on Star Trek, I'm a miracle worker, Captain, and this was the guy. So this is the guy, and they all, so he's just this passive aggressive guy that's getting.
I like how he treats Chester like shit.
Yeah, he treats everyone like shit. Except you see that he's got a little bit of a heart when I think Corrine is leaving. And that's Diana Canova, and I was a big fan of Diana Canova's mother, Judy Canova, who was a country western star in the 1940s, and she was in a number of movies back then. And Diana Canova is like 6'5", or 6'6". I mean, it's incredibly tall. Yeah, nice smile. But my point is that Benson, when Corrine is leaving. Because she wants to live with the tennis guy. He's like, you call me if you need me, that kind of thing. You see, he's not a real bastard. He's just annoyed at everybody, and
Robert Urich, that's who that is.
Okay. So Benson's annoyed of everybody, but I thought it was an interesting beginning, and the mafia guy, I've seen that guy before. Was he in horror movies?
Talking about Danny Dallas, Ted Ross, or are you talking about the mafia?
I'm talking about the Mafia Godfather.
God, that's gonna drive me nuts.
Was he in horror movies? He looks awfully familiar.
No, I know who you're thinking of, and that's not him.
No, I think exactly. They look like each other, don't they? They look like each other.
He was the professor in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I think.
Yeah. So I think it was. Again, you had to be able to follow it, but I think it was I think in the main, some of the jokes I thought were kind of off, and they didn't, didn't have the beat. But there are 3 bloopers, by the way, that I will mention. And so if any of you are really, really looking at the DVDs, because that's what I did in episode 1. So when Jessica's in the kitchen cutting and arranging the flowers, she cuts a yellow rose or yellow flower, puts it in the vase. Then she picks it up and she's holding a pink one all of a sudden. And then the yellow rose is gone. And then she puts the pink one in the vase. And then the pink rose is gone. And the yellow one is where it was
You
before.
would notice that.
Yes, I would. 2 more bloopers just for everybody who's looking and saying, what the heck? He can find a blooper in anything. Okay, in episode 3, as Danny and Burt are fighting in the kitchen, Mary tells them to clean it up, and Burt puts on he has a towel. He has a dish towel over his right shoulder.
Right.
And the source that I was looking at, TV Miracles or something, said that the dish towel was all of a sudden gone from his shoulder. But no, that's not true. He put the dish towel later around his neck. And then all of a sudden, the next scene, there's no dish towel around his neck. So the dish towel disappeared. And then also in that same episode when they fight, they put a pot holder on the fridge, which starts to sway when Mary enters. And then all of a sudden, so when Mary enters, the pot holder is going from side to side. Then all of a sudden, the next scene, the pot holder is steady. So you can take that with $2.75 and get in the subway with it in New York. But those are the bloopers for that block.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool, though, how they attacked a lot of, with all the comedy, but they really went after some issues throughout the time that this show was on. Homosexuality, what a big
sex change. Isn't it weird that, in YouTube, they don't have all the episodes on in YouTube, and I don't know why. The second episode they did not have on YouTube.
I don't know.
And that's the one where he cross-dresses, Billy Crystal cross-dresses, looks really cool.
He does a really good job at playing gay, though.
He does.
I just love how he always bats his eyes at Burt. Burt really gets upset. I just think that's like my favorite stuff. The 2 boys interact with Burt. Those are some of my favorite scenes in these 8 episodes, because it's just the look on Burt's face. He's always getting upset.
You know what Burt reminds me of Sid Caesar, the actor.
He kind of, sort of.
Yeah. Because you see the expressions and stuff like that.
He's very, he's kind of like, Julia. His facial expressions.
Yeah, but he comes off of all those Mel Brooks films. The Producers,
really? Okay.
Richard Mulligan, yeah.
Yeah, so he's one of the alumni for that. I had to sit there and say that what makes soap brilliant in the way that it's written and edited and produced is basically Susan Harris. If you look at Susan Harris's resume, she's given us some of the best comedies. She gave us Benson. She gave us The Golden Girls. That's Susan Harris.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And soap, of course. And what I love about Susan Harris is that she's able to thread serious issues through her comedy to help make the world a better place, or help people give an understanding.
Right.
Because you have to remember that when soap came out, transsexual and homosexuality was pretty much on the down low. You didn't see an openly gay character on television until this time. And what she was able to do is bring this into middle America's home, make it understandable, make it funny that you're laughing, but at the same time tackle an issue that nobody would willing to tackle in a good in a positive way.
Well, sort of like when Jody's talking to Burt, he goes, "Just look at me, I'm a human being."
Yeah.
They made it funny, but it was true. I'm a human being. So,
but she would also continue this, like through Golden Girls. They would attack serious issues, whether it was about abuse, the way that women are looked at, and that sort of thing. And that's what the brilliance of Susan Harris is, and that's what the brilliance of soap is that even though that you're laughing, and the thing is, it is a baldry comedy.
Right.
But what they're able to thread through, there are serious issues. And at a time, there are going to be episodes you're going to see that are going to make you pure cry. you'll see sounds like Jessica, she's ditzy, but when you look at the scene between her and Corrine when Corinne's leaving,
I was just thinking about that.
We make mistakes. He goes, I make mistakes. I made a big mistake.
And Corinne just walked out, though. She was so pissed off. She just walked out on her.
Yeah.
And that was.
Get these. Like Benson with Jessica. The relationship between Jessica and Benson is fantastic because, they have some sort of things. And then another thing that's quite interesting is that you do have a ditzy character, but normally your ditzy character doesn't have a lot of depth. What we have here is in Jessica, a ditzy character who has a lot more depth and knows a lot more that's going on than you think she does, because all of a sudden she knows that, for instance, like you're watching these 8 episodes and she's like, about Chester's affairs and everyone knows about it. He'll jump on anything that moves, so on and so forth. But the thing is, and you think that she's like totally oblivious, but then you find out she's totally oblivious because she wants to be oblivious, because you find out during these episodes that she knows what's going on, which makes it a very, very interesting character.
I don't know if it's plausible deniability or she just doesn't really want to totally acknowledge it.
I think it's the second. I think she just, she's happy in the situation that she's in, and she just wants to keep it that way. So she sticks her head in the sand like an ostrich. And
Benson does look out for her, though, which is kind of
okay.
But you also have to remember what is Jessica's tagline at the beginning of every single episode? Hello, this is Jessica Tate. This is a story of 2 sisters. This is Jessica Tate. She loves life. She'd be even more happier if she could set it to music.
Yeah.
That tells you everything about Jessica right there. I know, they what we call rich sort of thing. And
but you do see the 2 sisters love each other. I mean, you can really see that. And the other sister is very protective of her. And they have lunch together. And of course, so one is in the rich family and the other one is in the lower middle class family. And so there's that obvious clash of how can the 2 get together? And so that makes for some.
I don't think it was the money thing that was clashing. I think it was all character that was clashing. I don't think that they cared that they were middle class as opposed to them being rich. Sisters,
I think it's money. It's money in class as well, though, isn't it?
Yes, it's both.
I didn't think I noticed that much, though, because the sisters love each other so much, and Chester, he's just a shit.
That goes beyond.
Burt is Burt, but you do see that Jody and Jennifer Salt's character Eunice Tate, they get together and they get
the first time in 20 years at the restaurant. Is this the cousin? Yeah. And then they start talking, and she's like, I never knew who you were.
Right.
And I was annoyed at I was angry at you because you kept stealing my dresses.
Yeah, he kept taking her clothes.
Well, at one point he's wearing her scarf when she goes to Corrine. Have you been stealing my scarves again? And then Jody shows up and wearing her scarf.
But then that thing with the priest is interesting. Corrine has been in love with this priest, the guy that she can't have. And
Father, what a waste. We all know what that is growing up Catholic.
Well, speak for yourself. Coming from a nice Jewish boy like me, I should know. But anyway, no, I think the scene where he's trying to retreat into his stoicism by screaming the prayers in Latin while she's trying to talk to him, and he's like, he goes, I love you. Pace Requiem, clank. It reminds me of Monty Python when they hit themselves over the heads with the boards,
Yeah.
While they were doing that.
They used to make us go to confession. I mean, I think we had to do our first confession while we were in 2nd grade. And I had nothing to confess in 2nd grade. I'll never understand that. But just like I didn't really sin that much until I got to 8th grade, maybe 7th grade. I started sinning. But 8th grade, 2nd grade.
You made up for it, huh? You made up for it.
You're still eating glue and crayons in 2nd grade.
Or you're sniffing glue.
That didn't come till later.
And that's what that.
I mean, another thing I had to say that I like about soap is the special guest stars or the characters that flow in and out. And the thing is, you just recognize these people like Sheila Fine, who's basically, she's hiding in the shower room when Jessica shows up, and then when Corrine shows up, and
that's
then they
Nita
both
Talbot.
leave.
That's Nita Talbot. And Nita Talbot was telling Vicky before we got on the air. That Nita Talbot was
pretty
from Hogan's Heroes. She was the Russian. She was the Russian. That's darling, right. Come to me.
She has those vivid silvery blue eyes. You just can't forget them.
But she was also in Mannix as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see
in that.
It's interesting to hear Nita Talbot. It's interesting to hear her with a normal American accent.
Yeah,
and actually a kind of like Jewish American accent, because she was Russian on Hogan's Heroes, darling, let me come to you now, that kind of thing, and almost like Lugosi.
She did it good though. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, no, she was excellent, and she was also sexy. So I had a number of sexy looking characters, and
they were usually Russian or maybe Gestapo women.
Oh, yeah, on Hogan's Heroes?
Yeah, you just got me off track.
Yeah, I know. Especially the blonde. There were two blondes, a Sigrid, but that's another story. But
she also has a Dan Curtis connection as well, because she ends up doing a couple episodes of Night Stalker as well.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's very interesting.
God, the 80s and the late 70s were so long ago, but it all comes back. It all comes back.
It was everybody loved it at the time. I remember, even though I didn't watch it. I mean, everybody was talking about it. It kind of makes me wonder what would have happened if Dark Shadows, even back then, had gone tonight. And so you can actually look at the idea that this was really a grand experiment. Wasn't this the first time that a soap opera format really went tonight? I don't think there was any.
Well, there was primetime stuff going on. There was Dallas and Falcon.
Well, Dallas and they came out
later, though, didn't it?
But that's later. That's in the 80s.
But let's be honest. I guess in the 60s we did have Peyton Place.
Okay, I forgot about that. So yeah.
But it was one of those shows that was definitely out there because a lot of people were not tackling the issues that they. And I read off a litany of the issues.
Kind of like All in the Family. Well,
All the Family, yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
But they didn't really go after, sex changes and.
Well, go ahead.
They did hit some. I mean, they did deal with. There are some episodes where they did deal with homosexuality.
That's right. Race. His friend. Archie's friend. That's right.
And they did deal with things. And what's interesting, especially like in the comedy format, is that you can actually attack serious issues with the use of comedy. And the thing is that, and what's very, very, the thing about comedy is that comedy is a lot like horror, and they're very, very hard to pull off. But if you can pull it off well, you can attack a lot of serious issues. But if you do
it across, you can.
But with comedy, what you can do is the thing is you can attack the issues, but at no time during soap are you laughing at them. You're laughing with them.
Yeah,
and that's what's very important, because even like the Jody character, it would have been very easy to do, like a homosexual character that's very flamboyant and is the butt of everyone's jokes.
Yeah.
But in this case, he's not the butt of everyone's jokes, because at the same time, what you're doing is even when he becomes the butt of your jokes, it's a bit like Archie Bunker's racism. You're laughing, but you realize that you're laughing, but it's wrong, and you do realize that, and it helps you realize that. And I think it shows like this, which unfortunately during the PC culture that we're in, we're kind of missing these kind of nuances, because at the moment you can attack issues through comedy or something else, and the thing is, and you're more able to accept different walks of life and different views and everything like this through comedy and laughing. But if you start hammering people over the head and pointing that this is the message that we're pointing to you, people stop listening. But with comedy, you can do this and sit there and pick up the messages as you're coming along, because you're entertained, you're having a good time without someone forcing something down your throat.
I was also going to say that, in the 1970s, I think in terms of what was actually going on in the real world, you had the Title VII laws in the 1964, which prohibited discrimination on the basis of sex, meaning gender. But when they came across with that, they never talked about transgender. And so in the 1970s, and actually in the late 60s, you started to have some transgender riots and
I don't recall that.
Yeah. There was one in. Yeah, there were a couple. It was in Boston or something like that.
Stonewall. Yeah,
Stonewall. Thank you. Stonewall.
I don't recall that. I'm going to have to look that up.
Yep, in New York City, around Christopher Street. That was gays as well as transgenders, and as a result, there were court cases starting to come down the pike that were starting to hint at. I mean, they were still denying transgenders their rights, but they were starting to recognize that, there was something out there. And by the way, did you know that during the Civil War, there were 400 transgenders transgender females that fought in the Union Army during the Civil War? Absolutely.
I did not know that. What a little interesting factoid that is. That does not appear in any of my history books in my library. It
does in my doctorate studies.
I'm going to have to look that up too.
That's how I came across that. And there's a lot of stuff in the 19th century, but it was few and far between.
Well, the 19th century was kind of interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, but can you believe that in the Civil War there were 400 transgenders that fought for the country, and they never. But anyway, getting back to the 60s and the 70s, it was just starting to. All this stuff was starting to come out. I think All in the Family really started the whole TV avalanche of discussing taboo issues.
People are bringing the racism, white and black, to the table and stuff.
Correct. And transgender was also part of it. So when I think Soap came along, that was kind of tying in to what would be a more controversial issue. And starting in the 80s, the Supreme Court started knocking down all of these cases. And it's only very recently that transgenders, with the exception of an administration that we have that I don't want to get into, that is against transgenders in the military. But beyond that, the Supreme Court was actually, as of this year, recognizing the right of transgenders in employment. And so the bottom line is that back in the 70s, I think Soap started to touch upon this. They hit a chord.
A little bit. Well, they were trying to humanize it a little bit using Jody. And they were trying to humanize him because people were afraid of gay people. And this was like before the advent of AIDS. When was it that early? Well, it started in the late 70s, early.
No, the AIDS crisis started in 79.
1984.
Yeah, it was the first cases came out about 1979, but it actually came into more fruition in 84. That's when it started becoming more of a pandemic situation.
New York City HIV/AIDS Services Administration started in 1984 as a response to the AIDS population literally dying out, and those caseworkers would get to know these patients, and within 2 months they'd be going to their funerals. So it really started coming out later then. But I think that these first 8 episodes touched a couple of taboo chords. And in fact, I think that's why the second episode wasn't on YouTube. It may have been an old contract, but they talk about...
I couldn't find that one either. Well, I've got the box set.
It's on the box set, but not on YouTube. Really weird. But then when you think
of it... It was on TV back then, on prime time, so that's weird.
Sure. Well, I just think there may have been some, I don't know, there may have been some kind of objection, but that was the episode where Billy Crystal dressed up.
Wearing Campbell's clothes.
Exactly. And then also, of course, then you go into Billy Crystal's affair with the football jock.
Yeah.
And how he's getting the sex change, and he's possessive, isn't he, when it comes to that guy?
I was trying to figure. I mean, that wasn't sex changes back then. Just like that. Well, they've been trying to do them, but they didn't really have, I believe, the technology. So to speak.
Well, they had technology. They were successful. I mean, there were sex changes going on in the 40s and 50s.
That's true.
Ed Wood did a film about it. Glenda. And which was based on a real life sex case thingy. I mean, of course, Glenda is not the greatest film in the world. I mean, if you want some realism about transsexuals and about sex changes, you might not want to watch Glenda because it's
Ed Wood.
But he booked that on a case because I can't remember the name of the person who was having it done in Sweden.
Right.
So Christine Jorgensen, for instance.
That's it. Christine Jorgensen.
Okay. And that was very, very famous back then. And then didn't I'm not sure, but wasn't there something about Mae West or something like that in her later years or something?
Mae West?
Yeah, I don't know, for some reason. No, I'm confusing it with something else.
She was all woman.
But yeah, come up.
I think she was anyway.
Come up and see me.
But
no,
I mean,
Marlene Dietrich, back in the 30s, Blue Angel, where she wore there was the cross dressing, and so forth. Yeah, and the top hat, and that kind of the Germanistic expressionist movement, which kind of touted back, and also well, no, the transsexual stuff was not in horror to that extent. But anyway, getting back
we did get like but normally transsexuals in Hollywood films or stuff like this would normally have to do with murder, like homicidal. They would in Castle film, or I guess Psycho, the Anthony Perkins.
Psycho,
character.
yes.
Or Dress to Kill, Brian De Palma came out later.
Okay.
So we did have, but they tend to be cross-dressing maniac serial killers,
exactly.
sort of things.
But they had mommy issues, okay, or at least we know Norman did. So,
but I think that, but I guess at this time, I imagine in the 70s that if you were going to have a sex change operation, that it was a very, very probably a longer, laborious situation, because at that time, I believe that you had to, if you wanted to have a sex change at that time, you had to go through psychological counseling for a good 2 to 3 years. You had to live as a female. Now, I mean, not, basically, just wearing a wig and wearing a dress for 3 years, like you're a female, even though you may look very masculine. So you had to put yourself through public ridicule during that 3 years to prove it.
Right.
And then it probably was extremely expensive as well, because no insurance was going to touch it at this time.
No.
And you're not, and I know in the UK that basically as far as getting it on the National Health Service, that only happened in the last few years. So so I imagine that if you were going to do it, and I guess when you watch the TV series Pose, for instance, which deals with transsexuals and that thing, and what you see them doing is they're all saving up money, and they're saving a lot of money to have this done. And this is set in the early 80s. So here we are at 1977 as soap. So I imagine it's probably pretty expensive.
Well, they do go into the extramarital affairs too. Most of the soap operas that you see during daytime, even now, because I still love General Hospital, somebody's having an affair,
and everybody's having affairs with each other on soap, including the tennis pro, who's having an affair with both the mother and the daughter.
Yeah,
Robert. And that goes
and they're always related to someone else in the family.
It turns out to be Burt's
Burt's son.
Burt's long-lost son. And that goes
Burt has another long-lost son who's a ventriloquist.
We got.
I had to say I love Chuck. I love Chuck and Bob.
My God! I think it's funny because everybody starts talking to Bob like he's a real person, and she's going, "He's a dummy," and he's always covering his ears so he can't hear everybody call him a dummy.
Mary is so pissed off because she has to make him the dummy egg.
He wants an egg a certain way.
And the funny thing about it is that which is quite interesting is that Bob is more of a personality than Chuck is. So the thing is, you're drawn to Bob, even though Chuck's there the whole time. You don't really, and it's I find it funny that all the characters find themselves talking to Bob. But
Jessica likes Bob.
But then Chuck's the human, and no one talks to Chuck at all. But they talk to Bob, which is kind of funny.
But they're pissed off because they have to, with one exception, and that's Jessica. Jessica treats Bob like a human being. And that is just so. There's this innocence. This naive. Whether the naivete is actual or because Keith, you mentioned that there was a method to her madness. But there is a certain amount of innocence to her. And I think this is really, she really does look at Bob as if Bob is a real human being. And perhaps she's then the most genuine of the characters in that block. if you think about it. She gives everybody an even break. Chester can do no wrong, even if she thinks he is doing, because she probably, maybe there's a part of her that realizes, so he had an affair, but so did I. And she's extremely guilty about divulging that, that kind of thing. So maybe there's that too.
Well, I mean, think she has that dinner party and the long lost tennis player's son of Burt shows up.
Right.
Corrine's there. Corrine's been tapping in. The mom's been tapping the tennis player, And so that, talk about awkward at the dinner table. And then this food fight thing that goes on with Burt all the time. You like to throw food. Do you ever notice that Burt's always throwing food?
That's all slapstick. And I think
and then you got Danny has to take Burt out into the woods and put him down. He doesn't know how to do that.
But then you notice now, slapstick is not something you see in regular soap operas.
No, it's a parody. That's the beauty.
So I think that's unique then to soap because it's introducing that. And by the way, regarding the tennis pro, remember who else is going after him at one point? Jody. Billy Crystal.
Well, he tells him to stay away from his son. He goes, "You fruit."
Well, because Jody takes his hand and says, "I'd like to learn tennis with you."
Yeah, I know.
And then he says,
fruit." They keep calling him a fruit. It's just like I forgot that terminology. This was decades ago. I don't even remember somebody calling somebody.
But he's only joking. Yeah,
well, he didn't want it. But who knows? He does seem to like athletic type people. But you still got teenage adolescent stuff going on. You got Molly and Billy. She wants to leave him, and he's all depressed.
I don't know why the hell he was attracted to. I mean, she's a, she's a, but he wants to go steady. He wants to. They want to go steady, but they don't like to kiss each other. Isn't that?
She's a little bit. I don't know what she is. She's a little bossy, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what's quite interesting about Richard Mulligan, or who played Burt, is that when we interviewed Jennifer Salt, she sit there and say that when you worked with Richard Mulligan, you never knew what he was going to do, and he didn't do anything during rehearsal. He'd just say his lines, and then he would come when they filmed. Everything would come alive, and he'd just do whatever he had to. And the thing is, you had to make sure your seatbelts are fastened because you had to make sure you're along for the ride. Because if you weren't, then he wouldn't be very happy.
Well, that's brilliant.
That's brilliant. Facial expressions. Yeah. I don't think I could have got through a take without laughing. I don't know how they even got through scenes with him. He's just funny.
I mean, I think it's also quite interesting is that even the characters that you think are sane are not exactly sane, and the ones who you think are mad are actually have a lot more saneness going on with them. It's a bit like Eunice. Eunice comes across as all prim and proper.
Right.
But then it tells a lot when she walks into Billy's room and she goes, "Oh, what are you doing looking at this filth?" And he goes there, "Yeah, it comes from the woman who hasn't seen herself naked since birth."
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And then you realize, like, actually, there's a little dark secret with her. She's running around with a married congressman at the same time.
Right.
And I think that's what some of the beauty of soap is that you're kind of watching it, but then it's like, it moves very, very fast. It moves very, very quickly, and it's very, very funny. But at the same time, it's just like, but there's enough that every single character is endearing, and there's not one character that you dislike at all. There's nothing that you find that grates against you whatsoever.
Nope.
Because, I mean, to be honest, The Godfather, you should be like, "Oh my God, this is horrible." But the way it's played so brilliantly well and so brilliantly scripted. Like he's telling that, Danny has to kill his father. And you go like, "Well, you need to try the linguine." My mother would be very upset.
I know his mother will be upset if there's a full plate.
She doesn't mind you go and kill someone just as long as you're full when you do it.
Yeah.
There's some really funny lines, and I remember, when the Billy Crystal character found the sex cookbook. And,
that's right. Burt can't have sex with his wife because Burt killed her husband.
Right.
And that's why Danny wants to kill Burt because Burt killed his father. So there we go. Tie it up.
Well, also the mafia guy tells him that in order to get out of the contract, he's got to kill. He's got to kill the But with the sex cookbook, I think the line about Billy Crystal says Galloping Gourmet meets the Happy Hooker.
Yeah.
Now, you have to have lived in the 70s to know what that was about.
Yeah, you wouldn't know. Kids today wouldn't know what that is.
Graham Kerr, the Galloping Gourmet, for those younger viewers.
He used to drink, actually, when he was galloping and gourmeting.
From Australia.
He was hammered all the time.
This is for you, everybody. That is for you, everybody.
The Galloping Gourmet.
I'm the Galloping Gourmet. This is for you, everybody. To you, all. And all those women in the audience would be tittering while he's, It needs
a little more wine.
He's prancing around the kitchen. And the Happy Hookers, Aviera Hollander, who came out with the book and the movies and stuff like that. So you really get some dated references there. But if you lived through that period, and I had just graduated college, it takes you back to a kind of discovery where everybody was talking about the breaking of social norms and social taboos. So soap was perfect, I think. It did follow All in the Family, because All in the Family really started it. Unless you want to talk about All in the Family's predecessor in England, Till Death Do Us Part,
right.
which you got to remember too. But in America, I think soap comes out. So I can understand why a lot of people were taken to it.
And I have to remember that soap at this period in time was in the middle of the sexual revolution in the 70s. I mean, there's wife swapping and everything going on in the 70s at this point in time.
Yeah. What was it? Plato's Retreat. You had the Midnight Interludes in New York. You had those orgies going on.
Yeah.
Anyway, I missed all of that.
And serial killers running around left, right, and center.
Serial killers abounded.
Son of Sam. Oh, God. Son of Sam.
I was, wondering what it was about the 70s. Now, give her tangent. But I mean, what was it about the 70s of serial killers to seem to emerge,
Well, the 70s, you have to remember that most of the serial killers came out of, they were born in the 50s through this,
right?
Through this, this conservatism. And then you had the 60s, they're trying to go the other way. And then the 70s are kind of like this weird interim period that we've gone too far to go back, but at the same time, we're trying to work our way back. But the 70s was very economically poor. It was an economically poor.
It was bad.
Of
we
course
had the energy crisis. We had,
the recession. The recession in 76. Ford tells New York City to drop dead, which everybody remembers. And it was a big recession back then.
And if you remember other comedy shows that were going on at this time dealt with people who are economically depressed. You had Good Times, What's Happening.
Yep.
Even the ones with the white comedies, they were most of them poor. You didn't really see rich people. You only started seeing rich people again on TV when you got to the point of Dallas and Dynasty with the 80s yuppie. And that's when the economic term with Reaganism and stuff like this.
Nothing succeeds like excess. That was
by the way, also getting back to soap,
but that also came with family tradition started sliding back in as well, and conservatism tried to make a comeback in the 80s.
Getting back to soap, also remember now sexual surrogates are discussed when they go to the psychiatrist.
Burt got all excited about that for a second.
He did not want to do, but as soon as he heard about that, then all of a sudden he changed his mind. That was now the idea of sexual surrogates was really came into vogue in the 1980s. Because they were, they worked under licensed psychologists and psychiatrists. Had some cottage industry going on there. And in fact, a number of insurance plans actually paid for.
That's wild.
And if you were smart enough, you were able to avail yourself of seeing a psychologist and going to the sexual surrogate and having your employer's insurance pay 100% 100% of it. So that actually did happen in the 80s. So that's kind of groundbreaking because it's 1977 and it wasn't as popular yet. It would get more popular in the next decade. And then it fell apart afterwards, interestingly enough. But so to mention it in 1977, I thought was pretty daring. It was pretty daring.
I remember watching this show where they it's kind of set in the 70s, and they did have, this escaped me the name of it, but they had this sexual surrogate, and they got these couples, and they're like standing there, and all of a sudden the woman goes, "I'll be right back," to the therapist, and she comes back and she's naked. She goes, "Okay, are we ready?" And they're all like, "What?" sort of thing. And that's what they did. They're kind of like, it's like almost like a three-way psychiatry sentence, or basically, now touch her here, and then they'll be like naked next to you. That's what the sexual surrogate would do.
Well, I don't think there was three-way. I think it was you saw a psychologist first, and then you went into the surrogate.
What do they do? It was like pin the tail on the donkey? Did the psychiatrist talk you through sex? Is that what they did?
Yeah, kind of.
Well, they had beds in the office, the fold-out couches and stuff.
I gotta look this shit up.
Like, okay, well, you guys,
Vicky, where have you been?
But it would be like, okay, you guys start having sex, and I'm going to walk around and point out what you're doing wrong. It's kind of like that sort of thing. You do see a little bit of it. They do poke a bit of fun with it, with The Meaning of Life, the Monty Python film. Where they're giving sex education, and he brings his wife on, and she starts.
Oh yeah. And
it was kind of like that. That's what sexual surrogates were like.
Absolutely,
at that time.
Absolutely, yeah. I thought that was,
but I mean, it said before, you had wife swapping. You go to a party, drop your keys into a bowl, and away you went.
One thing I got to admire about Burt, he's definitely not afraid of heights. I mean, you could really see, he was up 42 stories, and he could handle it just like he's walking down the street.
Danny's freaking out,
and Danny is like holding on to the girders, and who could blame him? And then the last scene, he's on a girder and it lifts him up into the sky. I thought that was really cool.
I'll never understand steelworkers. They're just a little bit crazy.
I have never dealt with that population. Keith, have you?
I mean, I know construction workers, but not for people who built great big
skyscrapers.
Skyscrapers. Yeah. I mean, I think you have to have balls of steel to be able to do that.
I really think, thinking of that with the slapstick and then the construction thing, and that's right out of Harold Lloyd, the silent films, where how remember we're hanging on to the clock.
Yeah,
which was a great scene. He was very athletic too, Harold Lloyd, and so it does seem to me that there's a number of slapstick elements from old time comedy that are introduced into it, which and again, you don't see that in other soap operas. So it's more than a parody. It's a parody as far as everybody's having an affair. The priest is, the priest is lustful. The murder, him trying to, and it was, and those comedic scenes, by the way, between Burt and the guy trying to murder him were really cool. Where he'd take out a knife and Burt would grab it to cut some bread, and then he'd take the phone cord to try to wrap it around his neck, and by the time he's trying to wrap it around, Burt takes the phone. Hello, So like every time the guy is trying to use something to kill him, Burt goes ahead and and it's really quite inventive. It really is.
Yeah, that's what's quite fun about. So because it does throw in comedy satire, but at the same time you do get the slapstick quality, and what's quite interesting, it is taped in front of a live audience as well.
Yeah, that was smart.
Brilliant writing too.
Yeah.
I mean, Susan Harris really.
But doing that in front of a live audience cannot be easy, I think, because it's not just like All in the Family was a lot of dialogue.
In front of a studio audience. I think was it a lot of those 70s shows were taped in front of a studio audience.
Well, that's true, but what I'm saying is like All in the Family, for instance, was a lot of dialogue and and that's a lot easier to do in front of a studio audience than to do the dialogue plus the physical comedy.
Yeah.
And for the physical comedy to work in tandem with the dialogue. So I think that's pretty hard. I think they really came off pretty well with it.
The guy that played the the ventriloquist, his name was Jay Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Before he'd signed on, he had recently signed a contract to become a spokesman for a yogurt company.
Huh.
When he stumbled on an ad in Variety magazine, because they didn't have the internet back then, and he saw that they were looking for a ventriloquist for a sitcom. He auditioned just for grins, I guess. He didn't think he was going to get it. He was shocked when he actually got it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he was going to do yogurt commercials.
Was he really a ventriloquist?
He was a ventriloquist. Yeah, his name was Jay Johnson.
Wow. I always admired
that Maud, was it Rue, not Rue, was it Maud Veteran? Oh, it was Rue McClanahan was up for the role of Mary Campbell originally too.
That's interesting. They
would have probably made a good Mary, but I just can't imagine another Mary Campbell. I love Rue, that I can't imagine another.
Because you get used to, you get used to those roles.
Another thing is, I mean, I think she would just come off of Maud at that time, wouldn't she have?
Yeah.
She was doing Maud at that time.
Yep.
Would be Arthur. So.
Well, Robert Urich, he was doing Peter Campbell, and he was also doing Paul Thurston. I remember that short. It was a really short-lived sitcom, Tabitha. Remember that? He was doing that simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then he went on to Vegas, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, was he? He was like a sex symbol for the 70s. And
he died just recently, didn't he? But the last couple
I didn't know he passed that young either. You know, and whoever the Mary Campbell, she had died like a couple years after the show discontinued.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I think the last thing she did was the John Hughes film. She's having a baby with Kevin Bacon and Elizabeth McGovern.
The one that Leonard Nimoy directed? No.
No, John Hughes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was part of that, the Breakfast Club and all those films.
Okay.
Part of that canon at that time, which was very popular.
Okay.
But they did. I mean, the first 8 episodes really does go after just about all kinds of any possible thing you can think of, like the priest and Corrine. I mean, you don't think too much about that, but I always thought that priests should have been allowed to get married personally.
Well, I'm looking forward to, because I didn't even know, but you were talking about the demonic possession, and that's obviously later, but I'm looking forward to that. I'd like to see how they handle that one.
Oh, yeah, they're all pretty funny. You get Burt gets abducted by aliens. Those are my personal favorites right around there. I mean, it really tackled a lot of issues. You got,
sounds very wacky.
During this, this is later, but Jessica ends up in a communist situation because what we had going on back then was the Cold War too.
Wow.
Reagan hadn't really at that point, I think he told them to do
that was Carter in 77. That was Carter.
Yeah.
So that was before Reagan. Reagan came on in 80. But still, that does cut into the last couple of years or so, I would think.
Because everybody was terrified of communists back then.
Oh, yeah. Well, since the 60s. I mean, the Bay of Pigs. Everybody thought the world was going to end in 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah. Well,
that was a very scary time for people.
I wasn't born yet, thank God, so I didn't have no reason to be upset about it.
I was 6 years old, but people.
About it.
I was 6 years old, but people were still walking the streets like, they were looking up at the sky, and that was duck and cover, and that kind of thing. Duck and cover.
I think I vaguely remember in the 60s. Well, let's see. I went to Sacred Heart when I was 5. I remember having to go out into the hallway put my books over my head.
Like that would help. Like that would help if the bomb dropped.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like if there's an atom bomb or a neutron bomb just dumped on my
That's right.
Like, that's gonna help a lot.
Yeah, the books are gonna. Well, that's school for you. Books.
I didn't know back then what the hell that was all about, but I remember doing it in kindergarten.
We got under the desks, like that would have helped if the bomb dropped. But what the heck. I can kind of see where this would be, as long as they kept the complexity of the plots. And once again, it was very smart for the announcer to recap each week, so people remembered what was going on. Otherwise, you could get lost.
From the co-writers of the Amazon top-selling serial story, Timeslingers, comes a new, full-cast audiobook, Death of a Bounty Hunter, a supernatural steampunk western. 14 different characters voiced by 11 professional voice performers. A Korean bounty hunter named Flint finds himself in the middle of an occult plot to steal a powerful relic from an innocent woman.
Get me the Iron Spur, and I will show you true power.
Caught between the desperate sheriff who's becoming unhinged at the worst possible time.
He mutters the word like a curse dipped in sarcasm. I draw my gun and shoot him between the eyes.
And the phantom woman haunting his nightmares.
The living always think the dead are worse off.
Flint will have to make a choice. Confront the sheriff's posse of misfits or run. But he's losing time. An ogre of a man with a Gatling gun for an arm. The brash and headstrong Pinkerton agent, Geraldine Abernathy, and a young, speedster idiot ludicrously named Fancy Dude. They'll all converge at the home of a widow who's lost everything but possesses the relic they all desire, the Iron Spur.
Damn that trinket to hell. I don't care what it is or what it does or why the Duskfinders want it. I care about my children.
Death of a Bounty Hunter. The weird western you've been waiting for. Available on www.deathofabountyhunter.com.
Okay, now we come to our part of Brought to You By, where we'll give our final thoughts and episodes on Soap. But first, favorite character, least favorite character, Keith.
My favorite character, I think, in this block, I think it has to go with Jessica, or Jessica, the character of Jessica, played by Katherine Hellman. I think she's brilliant. I think this is a really hard role to be able to pursue and take off a little bit, because you got to play someone that's ditzy, but you got to have someone that you feel a lot of empathy for, and she's able to pull that off. You find yourself laughing with her, then you find yourself like feeling very touched by her, and she's able to turn that on a dime, and that's what I quite like about Jessica. And I think that, I think any other actress would not be able to do that very effectively, and I think that she does this fantastically. And I love the part of Jessica, and I love the idea that she tries to see good in every single situation, and even when the situation is not 100% good, she still tries to look good on it. But at the same time, she does it with such love and affection for everybody and everything, and it's quite refreshing to kind of see that. And she's not the butt of everyone's joke, which is, I quite like that as well.
She's well loved. You can tell everybody loves her.
And I think that in any other kind of show, that if this is written by someone else, I think that she would have been the butt of every single joke and stuff like this. But because she plays it so brilliantly, she's not the butt of anyone's joke. And that's what I love about her. As far as my least favorite character, I have to sit there and say that Burt's long lost son, the tennis pro, because and I don't think this has anything to do with him, but basically he's just Beefcake. And he's there because he looks good, but you don't really get much of an understanding. And there's something a bit off with his character, sort of thing. So you can understand that everyone likes him, but he does seems a bit out of place with the strong cast that's around him, sort of thing. Right. And so therefore, he's really hard to have any empathy for. And the next block, without going into anything, his character is going to be a big plot point. But at the moment, it's really kind of hard to identify, because he's not funny. He's not, he's kind of just eye candy. Yeah, he's just eye candy. And so I guess for me, he would be the least favorite. I mean, Robert Urick's very good at playing that part, but it's just very hard to feel one way or another. I mean, the other married woman who's having an affair with him did more with her 5 lines than he's done with the 4 episodes that we saw him in.
Yeah,
so,
it's true.
So they're my favorite, my worst, and my least favorite.
How about you, Tom?
Well, so I agree with Keith that Jessica is definitely up there. I want to tie her, believe it or not, with the grandfather because that old guy, oh, he cracks me up. I swear to God, and especially when he was also running after the neighbor and tied him up and
he kidnapped
the neighbor and tortured him and brought him back, and the neighbor was friggin' furious, and all the different the fatigues, and then the general's costume, and and I just really think it's just so funny because every time he comes on, something's going to happen, and you just can't wait to laugh at it. And he really, it's really so between the two of those, I would say for best. The worst, the priest is, and I don't know what's going to happen with him. I have to take a look at the episodes later on. But the priest here is kind of wooden, and he's, what the hell's the matter with you? I'm looking at him. I mean, Corrine is, Diana Canova, and she should get honorable mention, by the way. I think Diana Canova is pretty cool in that. But the priest is just, it's like, oh, for God's sakes, can't you? And by the way, the father, the one who played the older priest, he's also a character actor, and he was in the Star Trek episode "Errand of Mercy." He was one of the Klingon. He was one of the.
Oh yeah.
Not the Klingon. Yeah, he was one of the. Oh God, I forget the name of the planet. But he was one of the elders of the planet that they landed on. So that's another. So they had some veteran character actors and guest shots, but I just thought the priest was kind of wooden. Hopefully, they'll develop him more as things go on, and that's my take.
For me, I'd have to say that Chuck and Bob, just because he's a ventriloquist, and I mean he's got to carry on two characters for one, like a 2-for-1 kind of thing, and he's got to integrate into this family, and he does such a good job irritating everybody, and people think he's actually a human. And when you're watching this, you're almost starting to think he's human too. He's that good because that his characters just develop so well, and he's just an excellent ventriloquist for one.
Yeah, he is.
So I mean, we see more of them down the road, and I can't really honestly say I have really that many people on here that I don't like, because they all have their place. I would probably say it's a tie between I would say Robert Urich, Peter Campbell, and the priest. So I kind of agree with you guys on that. They haven't really done much in these 8 episodes. I mean, even the priest at this point is supposed to be a little beefcake,
He's wooden. He's very wooden,
Yeah. But I mean, that kind of, I think these things start, rolling a little bit more. But it's hard to dislike any of them. They're all lovable characters. But if y'all have anything to add about these episodes?
Personally, I think that I think this is a good start to the episode. I like that the way that the pilot, which could be a bit shaky in a large ensemble cast like this, but they were able to keep everything controlled. And the way that it's written, it's pretty easy to have an understanding of these characters, and exactly what each character is and what each character is going for, and for a large ensemble, it's quite difficult that even the most people, even like the people that only have like 1 or 2 lines in the pilot, are fully fleshed out. But then it's quite good to see these characters kind of grow into themselves. And you can also see through season 1 through 8 how they're actually getting into their characters more, and I like how you're seeing the stretch going on there. And I had to sit there and say that the writing is so superior to a lot of sitcoms, because I have to sit there and say that a lot of sitcoms that you can watch from different eras or whatever like this can somehow seem a bit dated or a bit forced, and sometimes they don't live up to the expectations that you had from your memory. But Soap is one of these things that I remember seeing as a kid, because my mom would let me stay up and watch this, because she said there are lessons to be learned in this show that you can take forward within your life, and that's why my mom let me watch this show. And then I would have questions, and my mom didn't know much about homosexuality or transvestitism, and then there's other things that are going to come up later on,
right.
With this, and my mom goes, because I don't quite understand it, but she goes, I accept it. He's a human being, and it's kind of like this. And I'm sure that this, I come from a very, very small town in a very, very conservative area, and I'm sure that shows like this help open her mind and my grandparents' mind, because they used to watch it as well. And then I would watch it, and if I had any questions, she would answer them for me and explain things to me. And I think, in 1977, I was 12 when this show came out. And, so therefore I've had always good feelings about the show because of that thingy, for having that memory or that recollection of it. But rewatching it and finding myself laughing and enjoying it and chuckling to myself today, and I'm 55 years old now, and I have no empathy for the human race, and I'm very, very bitter, and I can watch this and still laugh.
You don't look a day over 100. So
but I'm laughing at it, and I'm entertained, and it feels fresh, it feels alive. And the only downside I can say is that it's too bad that we don't have a show like this today, really.
I don't think you can do it today.
No, you're right, you could.
I think you could, but I think that you're going to need you're going to have the right people behind it. And I think Soap is one of these things that, you got Paul Younger-Witt, he would go on to do Empty Nest and Benson and Golden Girls, which are all fantastic.
I like to see Benson already. I was intrigued with the character.
Inga Swinson hasn't come in yet, but she comes in there too, and she went back to Benson too.
When you know it, that a loudmouth butler becomes the governor, and then it just goes to show.
He works for the governor.
Well, Benson works for the governor. Oh, I thought he was the governor.
The governor's crazy stupid.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. I do want to say, by the way, the announcer. Now, that's a very understated role, but the voiceover announcer, with the friendly tone that he has, and kind of engages the audience with.
Roddy was his name.
What's it?
Originally Casey Kasem too.
Oh, really? So, this is the story of a family, and that's a sing-song cadence, and he engages. That's the key. He engages the audience. So, I think that role is a much more important one than from a technical standpoint. Yeah. From a technical standpoint, and also at the end, Will, whatchamacallit, that kind of thing. And we kind of do a parody of that, I'm
trying to remember, did they do that? I was young, but I remember my mother watching Search for Tomorrow and stuff. Did they say that at the end? Will so-and-so fall in love with?
They did that in the radio, I think. They did that in radio. I don't think they did that on TV as much, but they would have the announcer. Now tune in for Search for Tomorrow. Or The Edge of Night, which a friend of mine said The Urge of Night, and I thought that was really cool. The Urge of Night.
I can't believe I used to watch all Secret Storm. There were so many of them.
Oh, absolutely, and as the world. But anyway, So that announcer deserves an asterisk, I think, after his name.
Well, I think it translates well into our century.
Oh yeah.
It's still fresh, like Keith said. I still laugh at it. I just sit there in the back room watching it on my laptop and laughing. Scott thinks I'm nuts back there.
I think that it's something to look forward to.
But you've never watched it, so it's nice to see it through somebody else's eyes that didn't watch it, even though we all used to watch that back in the day. It's
true. No, I never watched it, and so it's a new experience for me. And at first I was saying, well, because we were supposed to have a guest co-host, but unfortunately that didn't work out, and that was one reason. But I wanted to come. But now I'm glad I did it, because looking at it, I'm saying to myself, this is something new, and I'm starting to see I'm starting to see what people thought and why.
Kind of brings you back.
Brings you back, and then you realize the societal milieu in terms of So it's and today, I think it would be, if you did it, you'd probably have to do it with a black family or a Puerto Rican family or something like that, like what they tried to do with All of the Family. They brought that back as with black character. Now, it didn't last, unfortunately, but it's more of a, there's something to be said about originals, and Soap is definitely an original.
And this is the end of the Literary License Podcast retrospective of Soap Season 1, Episodes 1 to 8. Tune in next time, where we'll be discussing our classic novel for the month of November, Call of the Wild by Jack London from 1903, and the classic film of the same name from 1935. We will be returning to Soap for our next episode in the new year in February 2021. I can't believe I said 2021, where we will continue on our Soap retrospective with Season 1, Episodes 9 to 16. So it is a good night from myself. Good night, Tom.
Good night, everybody, and happy Halloween.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Good night.
Remember?
Good night, all you fellow minions.
And good night for me, Vicky, and I will see you guys later. Y'all have a pleasant good night and have a happy Halloween and all that other good stuff.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
This has been a Literary License Podcast production. Until next time, and do not forget to comment or share. We would so admirably appreciate your support.